The NFL season starts next week. It is here. We have made it. It is finally time for actual NFL football in September. So that means that this weekend is your last weekend to finish out all of your redraft leagues, your best ball leagues, do all of that stuff before the NFL season actually starts, because we have football next Thursday. So today's video, I wanted to run through two strategies that I have been seeing prominently a lot in redraft leagues specifically, where you're either going running back early versus wide receiver early. And I feel like it's determined basically based on where you actually end up in your draft slot, whether you're at the front of the draft or the back of the draft. So I wanted to see how these two strategies work and if one is better to go with than the other one. So let's get right into the video. So I'm going to start out doing the running back early draft first. This one I think is the most prominent in the fantasy football space right now. It's because a lot of people are really going running back heavy. They want to grab two, maybe even three of those stud running backs in the first 2 or 3 rounds. And that is the strategy that I've seen a lot of people and the majority of fantasy drafters doing this offseason, which makes a lot of sense. It's my personal strategy as well. But like I said, I feel like it's kind of determined based on where you actually end up in your draft slot. So for this mock draft, I decided to go out of the 3 spot. I just thought that was the best one where I can grab one of those elite guys, guarantee myself either McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, or Alvin Kamara, who are my top 3 running backs. And we can go on down from there, compiling out and doing running back early. So let's get right into this draft because we have a lot to cover for this one. So the way this ended up going, Dalvin Cook and Christian McCaffrey, your 1-2, probably going to be McCaffrey and Cook in your regular leagues, but that's going to be the order probably for your first 2 picks. And then, like I said, that guarantees me Alvin Kamara at the 1.03. So we're already looking good, really not considering any other position there. That's why I said it's very dependent on where you actually end up with your draft slot, because most of the wide receivers fit a lot better in the back half of the first round and to start out the second round. And then this is where you can start attacking running backs then at the back end of the second and at the early third as well, to really solidify that running back early strategy. So here to pair with Alvin Kamara, I've got my boy Najee Harris here, who I think is a surefire pick to be a top 10 running back in his rookie year, just purely based on volume of what the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to give him. He's also a really good running back. So I love the Alvin Kamara and Najee Harris stack right there that I have as my running back early. And you can already see how good this strategy probably is going to look by the end of this draft. So here in the 3rd round, we still have some really good running backs here. We have Josh Jacobs, DeAndre Swift, Chris Carson, James Robinson has snuck up in here now because of the Travis Etienne injury. There's also a lot of really good wide receivers here, and this is another one of the big reasons why you want to go running back early potentially, is because a lot of these running backs are getting pushed up draft boards, which means wide receivers are falling down draft boards. So you can get a guy like Justin Jefferson in the 3rd round. I think that's absolutely fantastic. We have Alvin Kamara, Najee Harris, and Justin Jefferson to start out from the 3 spot in this 12-team mock draft. And that is basically, I don't even know how the other wide receiver one can compete. I mean, we're going to have really good wide receivers, obviously, but the running backs is really going to be the main issue in going wide receiver early that we don't have with this specific build. And you can see we can just keep going down the list. CeeDee Lamb in the 4th round. Like, this is probably, to me, best case scenario for how your drafts actually play out, is if you end up going with 2 high-powered running backs, 2 guys who I believe could be at worst RB1s, or both of them being top 10, Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb, who I both believe could be wide receiver ones as well. And now we're here in the 5th round, and we're looking pretty solid already. You can go the tight end route with Mark Andrews or TJ Hawkinson. You can continue to build out your wide receivers, maybe look to see what running backs you have in here, even though it starts to get really dicey down when you get into this middle round dead zone of running backs. But here, I think I'm going to go with my tight end pick. TJ Hawkinson has basically been an auto 5th round pick for me, just because I really believe in that 30-year breakout for TJ Hawkinson. He was highlighted in my league winners video from Wednesday, so you can go check that out if you missed it. I basically called him this year's Darren Waller. That's how much I believe in TJ Hawkinson and his breakout potential for 2021, and I love that value in the 5th round. So I'm going to go with that there. And then we can just kind of round out the rest of this draft and see how things go, because basically if you look at how the starting lineup is right now. I still have a flex and a quarterback, but that's basically my entire starting lineup, and then just bench slots from here on out as a pretty generic 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, tight end, and a flex starting lineup that we've gone with here for the RB early strategy. So fast forward, this is how the draft actually ended up going here for my RB early strategy. You can see, as I mentioned, going Alvin Kamara, Najee Harris, and then getting Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, and TJ Hawkinson, to me, is a fantastic start. That's a fantastic core of players. You get those stud running backs early. Because of running backs being bumped up into the first 2 rounds, we had some wide receivers fall to us in the 3rd and 4th round. TJ Hawkinson, my breakout tight end for the year. And then you can look to see how I filled out my roster from rounds 6 through 12, just filling out more running backs. Gus Edwards, who's now the lead starter for the Baltimore Ravens, I love as my RB3 potential flex play on certain weeks. I finished out with Cortland Sutton, AJ Brown, 2 more wide receivers who are really, really solid. AJ Dillon and Elijah Moore as well for more depth. And then at the quarterback position, I took my shot on Justin Fields, who I think could have an excellent rookie season after he starts and actually gets on the field, which I think could happen a lot sooner rather than later, especially because they play the LA Rams in week 1. That could be a sacrifice by Matt Nagy to play Andy Dalton and then put Justin Fields in week 2. And if that's the case, then I drafted Kirk Cousins as my week 1 starter because they play the Cincinnati Bengals in week 1. So I like having Kirk Cousins just as a stream player and a stream quarterback for week 1, and wait to see if Justin Fields take over in week 2. But you can already see just from this roster the benefit of going running back early, because 2 top 12 running backs, top 10 running backs, 2 top 12, top 10 wide receivers, a top 5 tight end, some fantastic depth at the end there. I think this is really the sweet spot here, is these top 3 to 5 picks, in my opinion, is really where you can go running back early. You get some fantastic value on those wide receivers. You can potentially go quarterback early or tight end early, like I did here at tight ends, but you could also go quarterback early, I think, if you get some value on Lamar Jackson, or maybe you want to pull the trigger on Dak Prescott in the 5th round. I think that makes a lot of sense as well. And then you can fill out your roster with all the extra players at the back end of your drafts, like I did here with AJ Brown, AJ Dillon, Elijah Moore, all of those high upside players that you truly believe in for 2021. You can do that in here at the top of the draft, going from the 1.03 spot, or any of these picks at the top 4 or 5 picks, like I said. So the benefit of going running back early from this draft to me is very clear, but I want to see, and I want to switch it up and really take a look at what that looks like when we go wide receiver early, and how that differs from the running back early strategy that we just did. So let's get this draft going. And for this one, I picked out of the 10th slot just to kind of mirror it. I was 3 draft picks in from the top of the draft. So now from the back of the draft, I'm 3 draft picks in as well in a 12-team league. So this is basically what I wanted to happen, because I think from the 110, I think you have a very good chance of getting Davante Adams, who I think has a fantastic shot of being the wide receiver 1 again this year, like he was last year. So going Davante Adams there, I think makes a lot of sense. And then here at the 2.03, depending on how wide receivers, or if all running backs and Travis Kelce or whatnot go in those 4 picks around the turn, you could be staring down, like I have here, Stephon Diggs, Calvin Ridley could be there as well, DK Metcalf. These are some of the wide receivers that you can pair with Davante Adams to go wide receiver early. So for this one, I'm just going to take Stephon Diggs. I think he's going to eat. He's going to be fantastic. I mean, right there, we have potentially 2 top 5 wide receivers in the first 2 rounds. So you can see kind of the benefit of going wide receiver early, as well as you have some really high floor and high upside wide receivers as well that could finish the year out. Like I said, both of them being top 5 at their position. And really the key here is just figuring out how your running backs are going to feel with the rest of the way out, because I think right here, honestly, we have some fantastic value with Chris Carson here at the running back slot. We have James Robinson, Miles Sanders, Darrell Henderson, I think are all pretty good plays here at the 3rd round, or maybe wait to see if one of them comes back to us in the 4th round. We still do also have this flex as well, and the tight end slot, which Kyle Pitts is there. But I don't think Kyle Pitts in the back of the 3rd round really makes a lot of sense, especially with this build. Quarterbacks too, you could pull the trigger on an early quarterback like Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson. I feel like with this strategy though, if you're going wide receivers early and any running back value falls back to you in the 3rd round, I think you have to take it. So I'm taking Chris Carson there at the 310, because I was kind of scared that a lot of those other running backs like James Robinson and Miles Sanders weren't going to make it back to me like what actually happened here too. So then from here on out, it's just kind of figuring out your running back 2 slot, figuring out where you want to go at the quarterback position, the tight end position. And here actually at the quarterback position, I think in the 4th round, Lamar Jackson would make a lot of sense. I'm actually really tempted to go with Lamar Jackson. Kyle Pitts is still there. Like I said, didn't really make sense to take him at the 310. Wide receivers still look very good too. And honestly, we could go for another wide receiver here. And I think I will, because I really, really love CeeDee Lamb for this year. And remember, we took him at the 410 in the running back early draft. So while that might be a little bit of a reach in terms of ADP, or maybe we got him at a little bit of a value in the last draft, I really like CeeDee Lamb. And like I said, if we have 2 top 5 wide receivers, I think Lamb could still be a top 12 wide receiver 1. So we have potentially 3 wide receiver 1s on our roster with a solid, RB2 slotted in as our RB1 in Chris Carson. And like I said, we're just filling out, maybe potentially streaming that RB2 slot. Maybe we get some high upside at the quarterback position as well, like Dak Prescott making it all the way to us in the 5th round to give us a high floor and a weekly starter at the quarterback position. I like that a lot there, to be able to do that. And then here in the 6th round, I kept it kind of in my mental vault that Gus Edwards made it to me at the 610 in last draft, which I really like. So I'm going to go with Gus Edwards here at the 6.03, a guy who I think could be a very solid RB2 for your roster. And if you want to check a little bit more, in my opinion, on Gus Edwards, you can go check out my video on J.K. Dobbins' injury, and I really broke down how I believe that Gus Edwards could be a very solid RB2 and has been in the past when he has been the starter back in 2018 with Lamar Jackson, and then as well even last year when he was sharing the workload with J.K. Dobbins, had pretty solid floor weeks for you that won't kill you, maybe not help you win, but in this type of a build, we just need a guy who's not really going to kill us. A guy like Gus Edwards could be fantastic for 12 to 15 fantasy points per game, and he's not going to kill you, and you're just letting the rest of your wide receivers and Dak Prescott here really carry you through the remainder of the season. So fast forward again, this is how the rest of the draft really went for me for my wide receiver early build. And honestly, I don't really like this team as much from how I ended up filling it out as what I did to start it out. Like I thought starting out Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, and CeeDee Lamb at the wide receiver slot, getting Dak Prescott at the back end of the 5th round, and then having good, solid running backs in Chris Carson and Gus Edwards. And I actually followed that up with going with Damian Harris and Ronald Jones as well. I thought that was really great, but I didn't like what was going on at the final rounds down here, I guess, rounds 9 through 13, because I wasn't really able to get any tight ends that I really wanted, because you can see like Dallas Goedert got taken before me here in the 7th round. All of these other tight ends like Gesicki, Tonyan, and Logan Thomas were taken before me in the 9th round. I would have taken them in the 8.3. Tyler Higbee got taken here at the 10.02. So I didn't really like that. So it's just the tight end position to me seemed really weird in this draft. Maybe this is just kind of how the computer was drafting. But it also felt weird because all these other players, basically like Will Fuller, Elijah Moore, Sony Michel, all really felt like I was reaching for them at that current pick based on their ADP. And I didn't feel that way in the running back draft. And maybe that's just because, this is like a really good sweet spot for players to just kind of fall to you and the draft board to just come to you naturally so that you get those kind of players. But I felt like I was reaching on these guys, and I didn't really like that. Another thing I didn't really like either was when I got to this point in the draft, what I would have liked to do was take some more running backs and, fill out. I definitely wanted a tight end in there, but like I said, I couldn't go for it. But I wanted some more running backs, in my opinion, as well. But they just got so disgusting so quickly that I didn't really see any benefit in taking any of the running backs there. Like there was a point where I was considering taking Jamal Williams, like here where Will Fuller and Elijah Moore was. Like I didn't really like that. Or Tony Pollard or some of these other guys who are primarily backups that could have a little bit of standalone value. But I didn't see that opportunity and the benefit of doing that over guys like Will Fuller and Elijah Moore who could have massive upside on a weekly basis. But I didn't like taking them because with this build, I don't know when I'm going to start. Like I would never play Will Fuller or Elijah Moore over CeeDee Lamb or over Stephon Diggs or Devontae Adams if all of those players are healthy. They're nice bye week fill-ins, but like I would never ever play Elijah Moore over CeeDee Lamb or Stephon Diggs when those guys are healthy. So I didn't really like that. And that's why I wanted, a tight end in there to actually help out my starting lineup instead of having to kind of settle for Jonnu Smith. And that is just something that I didn't really like about how this draft actually ended up. And maybe that is a testament to drafting in this part of the draft board and draft slots there and how those players actually end up. Because what a wide receiver early draft strategy allows you to do is, because you have those elite wide receivers, you can be leaner at that position and really, get a lot of players at the running back position, go quarterback early like I did, go tight end early potentially if the draft board falls that way. Unfortunately, it didn't here. But those are things that the wide receiver early strategy allows you to do, because you don't need as many wide receivers on your roster, because you already have 2 or 3 fantastic wide receiver options that you're starting every single week. So ultimately, when you're comparing this team to the running back early team that we drafted over here, I think, I have to go to the running back early team. I prefer Kamara, Najee Harris, and still, in my opinion, having 2 top 12 wide receivers in Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb. I got TJ Hawkinson in the 5th round, which I thought was great, which allowed me then to have the quarterback position more as my streamable position versus the wide receiver one over here, where I have a weekly quarterback starter, but the tight end position is now the one that I'm going to have to stream on a weekly basis, and I don't like that as much. Not to mention, I like how the running backs went and the running backs that I ended up going with, but none of them, in my opinion, really have a high ceiling. These guys are just really high floor players that aren't going to kill me, and that's fine, but none of them really have a really high ceiling. Like, they all just kind of seem like clones of each other between Edwards, Damian Harris, Ronald Jones, and even Sony Michel down there now as the LA Rams RB2. So I guess there's that. So I guess ultimately I don't really see a ceiling for this wide receiver draft outside of Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, all being wide receiver ones, and Dak Prescott being a top 5 quarterback. That is my ceiling. Versus over here with the running backs, I have, like I said, potentially 2 RB1s, 2 wide receiver ones, a top 5 tight end, and depending on how things go with Justin Fields, he could be a quarterback 1 at the end of the year as well. I kind of prefer that strategy, and that is where I'm at with how this draft and these 2 draft strategy comparisons actually ended up going. So let me know which draft strategy you guys prefer. Even if you're in the back half, do you still prefer going running backs early? Where does Travis Kelce kind of fit into all that? I guess I didn't really talk about that. But that is another strategy as well. Instead of going wide receiver early, you get Travis Kelce and a wide receiver, or Travis Kelce and a running back. That's a whole other strategy in and of itself. So let me down in the comments how you guys feel about these 2 draft strategies, how I ended up drafting these 2 teams, which one you like the best. Let me know all that down in the comment section below. And if you would like to see a video on my 3 league winners for 2021, you can click right up here and be able to watch that video. And with that all being said, guys, thank you all so much for watching, and we will catch y'all later.